we remodeled our first home together. It ended up on the cover of Dwell magazine for the remodel. And from there, we started just getting a ton of phone calls.
There's a goal, right? Before there's no goal, we just running on the hamster wheel.
What we do has great, great value, and we should never undervalue it.
Hello, Architect Nation, and welcome back. This is the right place if you run a small architectural practice. And on today's episode of the Business of Architecture podcast, you'll discover the silent killer of your initial consultations and why you may unknowingly be repelling clients without even opening your mouth. What a Buddhist monastery, a stained sweater, and a crying architect can teach you about unlocking leadership magnetism and the unexpected trick Warren Buffett used to become a better communicator, and why it might be the most profitable investment that you ever make. And now a word from today's sponsors.
Accurate data is crucial, especially in today's business environment. Outdated and inaccurate data leads to turnarounds, delays, and rising cost. With supply chain and staffing issues, these costs and delays can multiply. That's why a resource like rcat.com is so important. rcat works with manufacturers to keep their data up to date and accurate, and offers it to you easily accessible and free. Use rcat's powerful search engine to find what you need and download right there on their site without needing to pay anything or even register. So try rcat.com today. That's arcat.com.
Frank and Megan Lin, welcome to the Business of Architecture podcast.
Thanks so much, Enoch, for having us. We're so excited to be here.
Yeah, it's an honor to be on the podcast. So thanks again for having us.
You're welcome. And the work that you're doing in Austin is amazing. Super glad to have you on the podcast because you're really represent, in my mind, what a lot of small firms want to create and some of the challenges they go through. So first thing I was curious about to kick this off is for each of you individually, how do you individually define success for you? And we'll start with Frank.
Well, okay. Well, for me personally is to measure success is to have a breadth of work that people admire and inspire. If our work can really inspire people emotionally, intelligently, I think that's the success, right? But ultimately, to be a successful practitioner, you want your bank account to look healthy too. Be honest, true. As an architect, you're not taught to be a business person. We were taught to grind and work and create beautiful things, but monetary benefit is not part of the deal, right? So for me, in order to be successful, I want to be successful in both in design, the things we create, and also I want to make sure I have enough monetary to support my family, my staff, and make sure I'm running a profitable firm. I think that's how I can measure a successful practice.
Awesome. And how would you expand that to be not just a successful practice, but for you, success in life, if you were to add to that, Frank?
Well, if I can have balance in my personal well-being, that's part of success, right? Because besides architecture, running the business, I have other hobbies I want to be engaged with. If I'm able to run a business, they can run on their own, where once in a while I can take some time off and really do the stuff that inspire me. Beside architecture, then I can come back to the office, inspire not just myself, but my partner, Megan, and my staff. I think that's part of a life well balanced, mental balance. I think that's very important for us. If I have those, I think I'll be I can balance everything else.
Beautiful. Megan, how about for you?
Well, Frank and I are pretty aligned in a lot of what he said. We talk a lot about these goals internally, but just to add to what Frank said, I mean, I think we like to try to find and push boundaries. So not just doing repetitive work, but finding new ways to interact with the world and the people around us and continue to progress. So I feel like that really helps set up a successful practice to continue to be forward thinking. But then personally, I mean, we really treat our staff as family. Truly, we want, them to feel comfortable, have a work environment where they can balance life and balance work. And that's how we want to create happiness and success within our business when, not just us are able to benefit from like the free time and CEO are, but for our staff to feel like they're also part of the journey moving forward and they're part of the vision and they can feel like they're a part of it and that we really care about that. It just creates a really harmonious environment and makes us all so much happier to go to work. And of course, financially, that means when we succeed financially, and that's really important. We also want our staff to succeed financially from that. So that part of that happiness, we wanna be able to spread that on to our staff as we grow and as we become more and more financially successful.
So it's one thing to have a family culture, and I love that. How do you keep your team members accountable and have a culture of accountability? Because we'll go over your numbers here. You guys are performing at a very high level. So sometimes the reason why I bring that up is sometimes we hear a lot of firm owners talking about the family culture. It's basically a mask for I don't like having difficult conversations with people, so we all just want to be friends around here. But looking at your numbers and what you've been able to accomplish, somehow you have that family culture and you also have very high level of performance. So I'd like to hear about that. What are the secrets to achieving what you guys have done?
Well, I think part of it is the staff that we have are very, um driven for and passionate about architecture as well. They have a shared vision with us, and because we're on this journey together and they have a buy-in to that, they're just as eager and excited to work on the projects and put that effort forth as we are, and I think that's really kind of creates, um, a strong team and has them want to put more hours in and want to really look closely at things. Um, and then the way that we manage, we all are in tune with what's going on all the projects within our staff. And so when something, one staff member might need help, we have a different staff member kind of join in. So everyone has accountability within the office. And I just think it is an environment of passion and everyone wants to be a part of that.
Yeah. To piggyback what Megan said, we institute, weekly meeting. So everybody knows exactly each project, each phase of the project everyone's doing. And when we doing design or working on a project, since we're small practice, this a little bit easier to manage where people really understood each project's design, the concept, the end result. So if anybody need additional help, everyone can jump on. But ultimately, each person has their own accountability for their own project. So that's kind of how we can manage that. And in terms of working, institute family value, it's really, I got that from Megan's dad. I mean, her dad run a successful business. Their staff have been working with him for a decade and decade, right? So I asked him one day, how do you do that? And he told me, you got to take care of your employees first. Make sure they understood that family come first before work. And that really hit home because when Megan and I were back in LA working for a corporate firm, we literally work 6 days a week, or 7 days sometime. But you really put your work first. And when we were young, we understood that. We understand that we had to work really hard for no money, for the experience and for the portfolio that you want, right? So you gotta do it if you can. But now Megan and I have our own practice. We understood that, family come first. We want to make sure that our staff goes home, they're mentally, physically, marriage, everything else all taken care of first. And when they come to work, they'll give us 110%. They'll be ready to roll, right? So I think that was kind of the mind shift for us, how we want to practice. We don't want to burn out our staff. We want them to be inspired. So we don't just do, late hours or working on the weekend. We want them to enjoy their time off with their family. So I think that kind of bring that culture within what we do. And I think people really do care to go above and beyond for us because we do care about them.
That's so fascinating. I was talking with the firm owner just last week who's dealing with the opposite. So in his practice, he finds that a lot of his team members have challenging situations at home. And so what
Mhm.
ends up happening is they bring that baggage to work.
Yeah.
They're preoccupied they're upset. Look, I know what it's like. I know that when my wife and I are not aligned, we've had some sort of argument or disagreement, or it feels like there's some disconnection there. I feel I lack motivation.
Mm-hmm.
I'm more annoyed with things. I get a little bit more hopeless instead of more positive. And so this idea, I love what you're talking about here of how actually helping people have a solid foundation at home actually impacts the practice.
Absolutely.
Absolutely. 100%.
So it sounds like in terms of getting a team that's performing at this high level, it sounds like you hired right from the start. So instead of having some sort of culture where you're 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 handing out, hitting people's hands with rulers when they misbehave and chaining them to the desk, that you pick the right people at the beginning and naturally they're engaged in the architecture. They want to make a difference. They align with your vision. Have you ever made a mistake in hiring someone where you didn't pick the right person, or have you just hit home runs all the time and you got the right
Absolutely.
people?
Have made mistakes. It's part of
A lot of
the
mistake.
process of learning, but you definitely learn a
Yeah.
lot from that. I mean, we have hired before, um, where the passion wasn't quite aligned, with our work, or the collaborative process wasn't quite aligned. I think, as a small firm, you have to work really well with other people. We're sitting next to each other, we're talking, you're part of that. If you're not integrating into that, it really creates a it's like the bad apple analogy. One bad apple, can sour the whole pot. So we had that circumstance, and it made everyone very, very unhappy in the office very quickly, and we quickly realized that we needed to rectify that, and that can't exist. So even when we hire now, um, we have an office lunch with the potential hire to make sure that, like, everyone kind of gets along and it's gonna meld well, because there's a lot of different personalities that, have to work together really. And so if the rest of our office goes to lunch with one of the potential hires and that does not go well, that's we automatically have to put that on the list of, like, we can't move in that direction. We have to look a little further and find someone that's going to be able to work with the staff that we have.
Yeah. So for us, again, that's your family value. Not just Megan and I looking at the potential candidate, but I think feel like everybody in my office, our office, has a voice. They need to have a voice because we all collaborate. We're going to be talking to each other every single day. So their opinion matters to us, and that's the reason we insist to the idea of get to know the person, vet it through first before we bring the person into the office and have a conversation, have a meal, share the meal together, breaking the bread, right? So for us, it's a must, and that's how we can really hire the right person through those little every steps. Be patient, because I always say early on in our career, we were so desperate with help. We just look at a resume on paper and really not really vet it through and calling references, and we just hire people, right out the gate. And those are hard times, hard experiences that you have to go through as a brand owner, but that's part of the journey. On the business, you had to go through that. I think everyone needs to go through that, and understand. Then you can start to making the right decision, and for yourself, and for the team, and for the firm.
Yeah, I've made the same mistakes myself, exactly like what you're talking about. Hiring without the proper due diligence and then experiencing that. So I've learned, like you said, through the life of hard knocks.
Mhm.
What you guys mentioned, your process, it reminds me of my architectural mentor. And when I was working in just south of Houston, and he had a process whereby when he came in for the interview, he would take me back to the back and he'd have me, I think I sat there for like 15 minutes, like amongst all the other employees. And at the time it felt very weird and awkward because his office was just kitty corner to where the kind of the bullpen was, where all the team was hanging out. And it was kind of an open office environment, and I was just sitting there. I must have been there for like 15 minutes, and it was just very awkward for me as an interview because I don't know any of these people, and I'm trying to make small talk, but they're working and et cetera. And then he pulls me and he interviews me, and later on, what I found out, he's like, "Yeah, the interview was that first 15 minutes of you being with the team members."
Yeah.
Like you have to pass them. They're gonna because they're gonna be working with you. If they don't like you, you're not getting the job here.
That's
So
right. Uh-huh.
there's a lot of truth to that.
Yeah.
Now your numbers are very well here at Business of Architecture. We're just so adamant about tracking because if you don't know where your numbers are at, you have no ability to influence them. And of people who come here on the podcast, you guys are in the upper percentile, as we would expect from Business of Architecture clients. But average individual project profitability on average 35%, which is amazing. Your net operating revenue per full-time employee is over $200,000, which is a sign of charging proper fees to be able to run the practice. So that again is a high performance number. Being in what we call the 200 club, incredible. So many firms, that's probably that 5%, upper 5% of small firms achieve that. So, and realization rate about 94%, utilization rate around 82%, which is perfect, which means that you have some time where you're focused on things that aren't directly billable. So these are all very good numbers. I would imagine it was this way from the start, right? When you guys started out, it's just, we're trying to talk to investment advisors and wealth managers and what are we going to do with all this money we're earning from our practice?
Absolutely
Well,
not.
Tell
that
me,
was the start.
So as we mentioned in the beginning in your introduction, you travel the path of working for very prominent firms. You learned design, you learned the importance of project profitability, and you were on high performing teams at that time. Now, what was the shift? How did you guys end up coming together and starting a practice? Tell me that story. I'd love to hear that.
Megan, you want to do it? I'll jump in.
All right, that sounds good. Well, Frank and I, when we were working in Los Angeles, I was pregnant with our first child, and we just kind of realized we probably need to make a move because it was so expensive in Los Angeles at the time. You know, we wanted to be a little bit closer to family. Frank's family is from South Texas and wanted to move somewhere that exciting things were happening. So we moved to Austin and we started a family there. And Frank brought his job from Los Angeles and worked remotely. Well, what ended up happening was we remodeled our first home together, and people started just driving by, stopping, checking out what was going on. It ended up on the cover of 12 magazine for the remodel. And from there, we started just getting a ton of phone calls, and I kind of looked at each other and were like, maybe this is the moment. We should do this. We should break off on our own and just like dip our feet into this business adventure. And really, we had two small kids at home and just decided to take the leap from there. Um, Frank, you can kind of add to that.
Yeah. I mean, we just like everybody else, starting your business. We started from our garage, just two of us. We were just really just grinding. Whatever we design and build in LA or all over the country, it doesn't matter here in Austin. In Austin, if you want to get a client to believe what you do, you need to have something to show. At that moment, we really don't have much to show. We have one or two renovation project, and that was pretty much it. So we got a client that believed in us, first of all, we did a pro bono design for our church. We feel like we can use our skill to give it back to the community and hopefully do those kind of fruit. We can, gain some traction, get some client, do that pro bono work. And we did. We got a client believing in us and give us the first ground up project. So I would say first few years, we are just scraping by because in order for us to get a new project, you pretty much got to put the work in with little pay. And that's what we did. We just pretty much give great design, get as many projects we can, just Megan and I, and build up our portfolio in order to go out and sell ourselves. And it was not peachy from the gate, we were really struggling a little bit with putting the food on the table, but we love what we do. Megan and I put the kids to bed at night and to work till the morning and all the time. That's what we do. As a business owner, in order to survive, you got to put some grits into
But
practice.
I do think
And
business of architecture did teach us that that wasn't necessarily the only way, which I
yeah,
wish we had done way sooner because
that's correct. That's
um,
correct.
I feel like in the last year since we've joined BOA, it's grown a lot. We've changed a lot of what we've done, based on, future we've had past successes, but it really helped us build on how to make the business aspect so much stronger.
Yeah, and so it was a little bit over a year that you all reached out. How long have you been in business now?
I would say about 13 years.
Solid.
Yeah.
And how many of those years would you say that you really felt like you were in that hustle and grind mode?
I was the first 3/4 of our business. Yeah. Yeah. We were taking on so many projects, meeting so much deadline. We were constantly meeting deadline, presentation. We're doing so much for a small fee. So yeah, but there was a grind. But each project are we're so involved with every stage of the project. It definitely has started to put a lot of burden on us, right? We started to feel the burnout a little bit, and also not seeing the reward financially. That also is not very satisfying as a practitioner or home owner. And that's the reason we decided to reach out. We know that the time to make change, and here's now. This is the right time. We need to just jump into cold feet and make that happen for not just for us, also for the people who believe in us, working with us. We want to make sure they are compensated for all the hard work they put in.
Now that hustle and grind time, I mean, you were young, so you could operate on very little sleep, right?
That's correct. That's correct.
I mean, young kids and an architectural practice. You basically had 3 babies.
Hmm.
You guys have 2
That's right.
kids, is that right?
Correct. Yeah.
And then an architectural practice. And the architectural practice never sleeps. So,
No, never sleep. We put everything we make, we put it back in the firm. We reinvest back to the firm. So what we take home is really barely not anything, right? Right now our kids getting older. We need to start thinking about their education, higher educations, and then also think about our retirement. Everything we put in the last 13, 15 years has been, just all going back to the office, back in the business. And now I think business architecture has kind of helped us shift our mind about what is being successful is to running the business, not running as architects.
mm, having kids myself, kids are expensive, especially as they get older. Like, I was looking at how much we spend on voice lessons for one of my daughter. I'm just like, it's like, I don't know, it's like $150 per session or something. And there's like a session a week. It's like, whoa, that's just for one
Yeah.
kid. It's like the money matters, It's one thing to do what you love. It's another thing to be able to support your lifestyle and just have good quality of life. So so it sounds like for the hustle and grind time where you're really scraping by, really taking on any project you could get, lasted about 3 years is what you says, about a third, 3 to 4 years.
I actually think it's much longer. Well, he was saying like 3/4. Yes.
Okay,
Yeah,
I got
3/4.
confused. I thought it was one
Well,
quarter.
because
Great. So it was more like 10
yeah,
years,
because
Yeah. Hmm.
9
I
to 10
think
years.
we
Yeah.
had that myth, where you just work harder and we want it to be better, and we try to put as many hours into it because we just keep wanting to make it better. Um, Taking on so many projects to make that work, it became like a monster you had to keep feeding and do it really quickly, and it really started to take a lot of the passion and for the design out of it because you just felt like you had to work so much faster, to make things work. But design to us is still really important, but, like, if we get compensated the right way, which we are doing now, we actually have more time to spend on the design, which is what we really wanted to do in the first place. And all of the projects that we're doing now are very, very detailed, and we have the time to spend on the things that we love to do, and not as much of the time being spent on just this hurry we have to get out and long hours.
Yeah, it's someone anyone can go visit your website, Coexist Studio. You can look up coexiststudio.com. We'll share it in the show notes. Like this firm, their work, any architect would just be thrilled to have the kind of projects that you have in your portfolio. And I know not every project makes the portfolio, but the ones on the website that you've done are just incredible. And so not to minimize the idea of working hard, right? You said you worked hard 8, 9, 10 years. It was really that hustle and grind mode. So certainly you guys have results based on that. You worked really hard. You put a lot of elbow grease. You sacrificed a lot of things. And that also came with a cost.
Absolutely.
It had some benefits that came with a cost. And it sounds like the cost started to be, as you mentioned, started to experience some burnout, started to say, wow, this cost is mounting. We're looking for a different way to do things. So what was the moment when you both considered getting some help, getting some mentorship in the practice? Would you remember that moment? Was it a conversation? Was it something you heard? What was that?
Well, definitely it's a moment, right? I think towards the end of, before we reach out to you, I would say over the winter break of 2024 or 23, everything economies are slowing down. Most of our project, half of them, the developer project, all got on hold. So what Megan and I did is before the economy going south, we put a lot of our money back into the bank, invested, right? So we anticipate if there's a downturn, we want to maintaining our employee, keeping the flow. And that's what we did. We saved a lot of money to anticipate this coming. So towards the end of that year, we realized, the bank account is not looking great. We're not getting a project we want. And we are afraid to charging people higher value just because we don't know how to approach that, right? How to educate our client. But and that was a moment where, one of long-term employee decided to, start his own practice too, as well. So everything started to compounding, right? With business side, with, our internal culture of our practice, we realized we need some additional coaching. We need some help to really kind of redirect the ship to a positive way. We know that we have the portfolio, we have the work, Megan and I can design, but I think we look at that long-term goal. Where do we want to go? Where do we want to hit it? Where can we feel more security? So I think that was a turning point for us to reach out to you.
Do you remember how you found the Business of Architecture team?
Oh yeah. Actually, we have one very close friend in Columbus, Ohio. We visited him over the break, and he told me about the podcast. And after that moment, I got in the car. I started listening. And I told Megan in the car, Megan, you gotta listen to this. It's so inspiring. We need to get on board with this. Megan and I have conversation on the way home, back to Austin. We told him that this is the moment that we need to commit ourselves to listen to what business architecture can offer and what they can do. And if this is something that you and I feel that this is the path that we need to take on, then we need to be fully committed to the approach. So that was through that few podcasts I heard that really inspired me to reach out to you guys.
Well, congratulations for investing in yourselves, because there's two ways to look at mentorship and coaching. One way is as a cost, and it's easy to look at it like that. Like, I can't afford it. I don't have enough money to do it. It's another thing to look at it as an investment, which is just like you would an investment in the stock market. I can invest in the stock market, or I can invest in myself. And it sounds like you two had some self-belief. You doubled down on your belief in yourself, invested in yourselves. And a year later, amazing things have happened. You're more profitable than ever. You're still doing great work. Talk to me about that. Let's talk about, because going back to when you started your practice, you did the remodel, that started to get some buzz. It got on the front cover of Dwell. So there was a moment where you got visibility. In other words, there was a thing that got you visibility, and then that rolled into creating the practice. Do you guys know how you guys got on the front of Dwell?
Well, I think, we designed that first project, our own project, but realized this is something very unique, very special, the way we transformed the house. And I think we want to really reach a broader audience in Austin, let them know, hey, you don't need to have a big budget to transform your house. And what we did is we finished the project, invest a little money we had to get a great photographer to shoot the house. understanding we have this really tangible materials that we can go up to the publication company and say, hey, let's have a discussion, let's put our name out there. And that was immediately got, to dwell. So we know that that's the market strategy that we can use to tap into that resource to get a broader audience, like you said. So when we finished this last project, we got on the Lux magazine. We know we have an amazing, special, unique design. The approach that we did for this particular client, for this particular project, we know that with the images that we got, with the design, the sensitivity to every little detail we put in and thought to the whole process, I think this is something that aligns with the Lux magazine, because the magazine are curated towards high net worth client. People are influential. People are tastemaker. They are focusing on high-end architecture, interior design, and art and culture. So we feel like, this design can carry us to the next level. In order for us to get high value client, here is the project that we need to get in front of people. So we approached them after we had photographed the project. We approached them, and that was a no-brainer for them. And they were just really ecstatic and excited to put the project on cover of the magazine.
Beautiful. So I'm seeing a pattern here, a pattern of you guys having. I always like to look beneath the words and the actions, and I like to look at what is the operating system that is driving people to have the results in their life. And it seems to me like one of the things that you all believe in is investing in yourself, doubling down on yourself. For instance, even that hustle and grinding during the early days, it feels like you wouldn't have done that if you didn't believe in yourselves. So it sounds like you believe that with this, a lot of this working, pushing, taking on these projects, getting the portfolios, you're like, this will work out if we just push hard, if we keep on doing, we believe in ourselves. And then in terms of investing in yourself with Business of Architecture team, you said, hey, look, this investment's going to pay off for us. And then even reaching out to these design magazines. So for Dwell, you invested, first of all, you invested in the photography.
Absolutely.
Mm-hmm.
Which isn't cheap. I can't imagine you guys had
Mm-hmm.
a huge bank account that you're like, oh, no big deal. We'll pay this expensive photographer to photograph our project.
Yeah, it was definitely something. We also realized that if we wanted to move forward, we had to put some investment in it. And I think that's been our thinking throughout the firm practice is understanding that it does take an investment in order to then make something happen out of that. And just to that point, Frank and I also do architect as developer. We've done free projects and developed internally on our own. And each of those projects were actually geared towards a market that we wanted to get our foot in the door, because it kind of went all the way back to our beginning and understanding how that really worked for us. That our original home helped us get our foot in the door for larger remodels or builds. We've realized if we do these internal spec development projects and we curate them towards the next part, like the luxury market we want to get into, it also gave us a foot in the door for the next step that we were going to go into. So we've been just very careful about doing that. And those have been large investments, but it also helps people see what we can do and what we're capable of. So that's also been very successful for us.
Beautiful. There's a second thing I'm seeing here, maybe in a second, a third thing, which is risk tolerance. So first of all, starting your own practice has a certain amount of risk. Doing a development, like you said, financing it, putting it together, doing a speculative development, again, risky. So there's some boldness involved there as well in the way you guys approach your practice. So I really hope that our listeners are listening to this and they can see the subtext between the lines, because oftentimes it's too easy to focus on, oh, they did this strategy, they did that strategy. But if we can really figure out the operating system that Megan and Frank are running their lives on, how they view the world, how they make decisions, then we can start to unravel and decipher these rules for success. Because you want to go on and do more projects. You want to continue this growth pattern. What's the vision? Where would you like to go from here? Besides being a top residential designer in the U.S., which you obviously already are. Want to expand that, grow that?
I think we have
Be more selective?
I think
Yeah.
We do have a vision just in terms of what we think, how we approach architecture and the impact it has on people, and how do we want to continue impact people with the way that we think about architecture. Because I think being a residential architect, it's homes are places we spend a large majority of our time. And so a lot of thought goes into like how do we want to spend that time, and how can we change lives through that process of like making memories. Our kids grow up in these homes. How are they making their memories? And those memories go to their generations in the future. So we've been really thinking about how our vision and how we design and the emotional content of the architecture itself can continue to move on to, other projects. We're also doing some restaurant projects and growing there, but always with the intent about how we interact with spaces in a very humanistic way, about the emotions of the spaces and not just the built visual space itself.
Yeah, I think, similar to what you guys have done, the BOA have done for us, you guys put system in place, right? So for us, it's really learning about the system in place where we can really get that set up and set up the firm, set up our staff so they know how to run the system. So in the long run, of course, we like to grow, but grow in a meaningful way and also carefully too. As much as we take risks sometime, take on small projects, start our own practice and start our own development, those are all risks. And you gotta have risk in order to have a bigger payout, right? For us, it's setting those systems up, believe our staff, make sure they understand that there's a growth for them as well. So as they grow, they become successful. We all become successful. At the end of the day, Megan and I we don't want to be in the business of all the little weeds, all the little things. We want to design and be the voice and be a bigger picture. And also, hopefully, Megan can step out a little bit to the bigger community in Austin or outside Austin and to really talk about what we do, what we have done, and how can we impact more beyond just Austin. Hopefully we can reach the bigger audience outside of Texas, and beyond. And I think that's something that we hope we can do as we continue down to this path, making our business grow.
Beautiful. I'm curious, what were some of the impacts that you were seeing before your work with our team that were impacting your lives and you as people individually? What were some of those undesirable impacts that you were seeing?
Very stressed out. I mean, truly, we were just felt like we were running on fumes. Um, and it felt like the hamster wheel, like continually we're just repetitively doing the same thing with the same results. So we weren't ever able to figure out a way to move forward. It was kind of like we were stuck at the amount of employees and the amount of income, and there was no room for growth because we couldn't. I mean, we didn't have the bandwidth to take on more projects. We were already taking on so many projects. So something's got to change. So completely burned out. And then also just truly there was a fear about we're getting older. What's after this? And we've just spent so much time basically working in the business instead of building the business that what are we going to have when it's time to retire? You know, are we going to, when we disappear from the business, then is the business itself going to disappear? I had to rethink that. Like, it'd be great. We want to build something that if we're not there, it could still survive. Um, and we have the security that we can retire and do what we want in retirement.
Hmm. There's a goal, right? Before there's no goal. We're just running on the hamster wheel, just trying to live day by day. And now there's a visions. There's an angle that we can see it. We can see it, right? So we are excited about it. And that's what get us going. And most importantly is, running a great practice and our staff. I want them to understand that we really thinking about them, right? Make sure they're all compensated, they're all getting taken care of, because it's a big responsibility for us to continue to bring people onto our team. Because, not just taking care of them, but taking care of their family and their kids. So it's a huge responsibility to, to be a business owner. So I want to make sure, as we grow, I want to make sure we done it intentionally, carefully, and have a roadmap, not just for us, for our staff, and for our own family too.
Incredible. When you look back at the feeling of burnout and being on the hamster wheel, it's different for everyone, but for you guys, what was that like? How did that feel? Where were the sacrifices being made? What were the experiences you weren't able to have? How was that negatively impacting things other than just having a high level of stress all the
Well,
time?
having
Well,
young kids,
go
I
ahead.
think that really bleeds into your life, as you wanna be as a parent, and being the best parent that I can be is also, like, a huge deal for us internally too, and it just makes me short-tempered not being able to have patience just every day with them because I'm not fully present in the moment, and you know, we only have a certain amount of time with our kids, and I felt like I was starting to lose those moments because in the back of my mind, I had all these other concerns running in the background and not being able to like fully be with them. I just really felt like I was missing out on life. And same thing with friends, not being able to make time and space to be a good friend or go out with friends. These relationships are so important in life, and I just started to feel like the business was crowding out the relationships, and we really intentionally wanted to kind of reclaim those, that peace of mind and the space for our family.
Yeah. And also besides the family and, needing our own space, because we can afford taking time off, right? So, or if we have anything that we want to do for ourselves, we just couldn't afford it. We always constantly think about business. As a married couple, he always bring business back when you leave the office, right? He talk shop all the time. Everywhere you go, even when we're on a date, he talks shop. So
I
we
bet
had
that's
this.
super romantic, right? Like the intimacy. You're like, "Hey, how's those projects coming along?"
Exactly, exactly. We had to stop ourselves multiple times, often, right? And besides that family thing, also for us, we constantly talking about is our staff. Are they happy? Are they inspired? We always question ourselves, right? Are they satisfied? Are they inspired? Are they, you know, what is look like for them? Are they going to be with us long term? Is it going to be short term? Are we need to start looking for new employees to replace them? There's always those kind of insecurity, right? But I think, through the whole process to, business architecture, not just looking at our financial, it's all, you guys also taught us how to be a business leader, how to lead the team. I think that's just so valuable as a business owner, how to lead your team, how to inspire. And you'll see the long-term goal, the long-term commitment from our staff that they want to work, they enjoy working for us. And that's what we want throughout running the whole practice.
And what does that look like for you, Frank? What did you learn about leading the team?
Well, leading a team, not just having high value project, have a great project. Of course, everybody's excited about, oh, we got a great new project, we get to do this. But emotionally, be there for them. Also, sometimes you got to be there, but sometimes you got to step back, and set a roadmap. Have a system for them. Make sure they're accountable for what they do, and make sure they can do make high value decision on their own. So Megan and I don't have to be there to day, um, um, driving the train. Because I know previously before we took the course, I think everything stopped at us, right? We're not able to move things forward quickly enough where we bottleneck the whole system. I think the BOA really taught us how to, delegate and understanding, everybody's strength and weaknesses and help them get there, right? So everybody can really enhance each other, work with each other, and collaborate with each other. I think that's how we kind of work with that and lead the team.
So, Megan, for you, for the principles of smart practice, you've been with the business, working with us for over a year now. What has been most impactful for you that you found to be most valuable and most empowering?
It's a tough one because there's a lot of different things and different categories. I feel like that I've compartmentalized my head about how I've grown. In fact, I was just talking to my mom on the phone the other day and telling her that I used to feel like leadership was like a sweater that didn't fit quite right. Maybe I had to grow into it, but it didn't feel very comfortable. And then I was just reflecting on the fact over the past year that that discomfort has definitely it's beginning to, like, completely go away, and I feel like I am growing into fitting into a more of a leadership role than I ever thought really was possible, and it really was through the tools of understanding what my role really is in the office, but also understanding myself a little deeper. It like truly, I think BOA is just it's not just about the business, it's about working on yourself as well. And I think that's also made me realize like how to embrace the parts of me that make me a strong leader and allow those parts to grow. And so I think really that's like the biggest thing I've kind of gotten out of it is um really accepting being able to accept more my role in the business and that growth path of it and embracing that I feel like I've come so far in the last year.
Beautiful. Frank, how about for you? What do you think been the biggest levers for you, the most impactful part of what you've learned working with our team?
Well, I will say there's so many situations we feel so uncomfortable going through the whole process through business architecture, right? Learning about financially, looking at our own book is something that Megan and I try to avoid looking at it because we're struggling so much. We just have pride that we don't want to talk about that. So business architecture really opened up our books, understanding, hey, this is what needs to be done. This is what you need to do. This is the path, right? So there are so many uncomfortableness that we went through. I think that you guys really pull us out of our own shell and to be comfortable and admitted that we need help, not internal business finance, and also how to be a good leader. There are so many exercises that we went through as a group. There are just something so deeply emotional starting from within ourselves. You gotta work on your own first before you can lead others. So those processes are really, really hard because I came from a different culture as Megan. Growing up as Asian culture, you don't share your stress. You don't talk about anything. You compartmentalize internally and you deal that with self, right? But married to the family and taking on the BOA classes, and there are just moments I told Megan, I don't think I can continue through this whole process, sharing my thoughts, sharing my stress. I think those came out of that entire business practice and the program that you guys to the path was really make me a better person as a person myself, and be a better business partner to Megan and to our friend.
Love that. And it sounds like you're talking. I've seen from what you all have done in your work with us is what I call the beginner's mind, which is an old Zen saying that no matter how wise we are, no matter how smart we are, the true master begins everything with the beginner's mindset, understanding that I am a cup ready to receive. And that's a beautiful place to be at. And it can be a struggle at times to step into that energy. So now, as you've gotten more profitable and the team members are aligned, sounds like things are going great. What are some of the have you started to see the positive impacts in terms of your life and your quality of life now? And what would those be?
Well, I think for us, financially, we feel like, all right, there's a roadmap for our future, for our own retirement. I mean, first and foremost, because I do think about that. Before the course, I have many sleepless nights to think about where we're going to end up, how we're going to finish the business, how we're going to finish our career. Are we just going to just design one last house and disappear? And also our kids, they're very important to us. I think before pre-kids, I was really diehard. I love architecture. I loved, immerse myself in the design. But I think when kids came around, I realized there's a little creature that I need to, you know, sustain them. We need to bring them to life. We need to flower them. We want to see them, right, grow. And for them, it comes with a price. So I want to make sure that we are financially stable to provide what they need to grow as a adult, so that now you can see the freedom of that. We can really have, really restful night, not worry about, where we're going to go in the future and where our kids going to do with education and not able to afford that. So now we can really kind of have a less stressful life balance between work and our marriage, our family. I think that is such a breath of freedoms to have that.
Absolutely.
Megan, how about for you?
I mean, the financial part has been huge. Just
What has that done for you guys? I mean, just literally, are we talking? I mean, Frank mentioned some comfort around the financial retirement, right? That idea. But have you seen any other changes? Upgraded any cars? Been able to enroll kids in any experiences or taken any? Like, have you had the opportunity to enjoy the rewards of that?
well, we we've definitely taken the money that we've gotten and been able to invest it. Really, that's what we're like. We kind of feel like we're
Yeah.
catching up from like having put everything into the business. So we're able to pull a lot more from the business and then start like building, you know, our future together. And the other thing we've been really excited about too is we were able to roll out like a quarterly bonus program for our employees. So they're also sharing in the profits that we are getting as well. And so it's a huge incentive for them too. And that's actually very rewarding for us too, to be able
Okay.
to reward them at the same time we're being, you know, becoming more financially rewarded as well.
I love that. Well, thank you both for coming on here, being so open, sharing the reality of growing an architectural practice. And what advice, I'd love to hear from each of you, what advice would you give to other practice owners who may be listening and maybe they've been in business longer than you, maybe they're starting out, but if you had to give one piece of advice from what you've experienced that's helped you get more of the products you want, enjoy them, and actually start to have the financial reward as well, what would be your advice,
I
Megan?
guess don't believe in the myth that the architect um, has to just work so hard and really not get um, paid for that work, to realize that we have a lot of worth. And if we teach our clients what our value is, then we can all benefit from it. And to not be scared to do that because what we do has great value, and we should never undervalue it.
Yeah. And I would say for us, as a small practice firm owner, we're constantly out in the public engaging with conversation with people, right? So if you are a small owner that run into a similar situation that I think all small owners have run into once of their lives, all right? So for you guys is to really be open-minded and be vulnerable and have that conversation with another firm owner because everyone struggles. Everybody will, have story to tell. And for us, we're just like everybody else, went through the grind and then now where we're at is we ask for help. We ask people for their experience and people give us insight, tips, and knowledge that we can really take that and really not be afraid to take the challenge. For us, it's really trying to believe ourselves. First and foremost, you got to believe yourself that you can do it, and then take on the challenge and transform yourself. I think that's the biggest step that Megan and I made, and that has been very fruitful.
Love that. And I do want to highlight what you both mentioned. That is a big ethos here at Business of Architecture, is that our practices, our businesses are reflections of ourselves. I found this to be so true. This is why, as part of the process, consulting process that we work with firms, we're like, hey, look, the practice is never going to grow past you as a person. It's never going to grow past your leadership. Your team is never going to be higher performing than you're able to conjure up. So really, but the beautiful part about that is that means that we have the power. That means that as we do the work ourselves, on ourselves, like Megan said, growing into that leadership sweater, which I love that analogy. I'm going to remember that. And we're all doing that, right? We're all growing in our leadership. We're all growing in our capacity. We're all growing in our ability to connect with others, to help them get what they want. And I just want to congratulate both of you for the work you've done so far, and gratitude for being part of the process with you and trusting our team here and coming on the podcast.
Thank you so much.
Well, we're very grateful to have you guys in our life. This is an incredible journey, and we are going to continue that.
Yeah, thank you so much, Enoch. And to all the team members that
Thank
you
you.
have are amazing too. So I want to thank them as well.
Yes, absolutely. Everyone on your team are amazing. They're there for us every step of the way. When we need help, they're always there for us. So, the support is undeniable. Thank you.
You both have stressed the importance of having a team, and you mentioned our incredible team here at Business of Architecture. So I do really want to acknowledge each one of our amazing team members here, panel of experts that we have: Jackie Sage, our Chief of Staff; Jeff Hoover, our Director of Strategic Partnerships; Ryan Willard, co-founder and Director of Consulting and Transformation Services; Nicole Ballantyne, our Business Strategist; Nicholas Chowgott, Marketing Director; Mike Lin, our incredible financial wizard who helps our clients out with their accounting and their bookkeeping; Natalia Perea, who is behind the scenes always helping and supporting and helping everything run smoothly; and then Suresh, of course, who is taking care of a lot of our video editing, processing, and the marketing that we do here. So we cannot do it alone. It's all about the team.
Mike and the bookkeeper, he is
He's a
amazing.
superstar.
He definitely helped us. Superstar. Everybody should sign up with Mike Lin.
Thank you. Yeah, appreciate that. And yeah, just for those of our listeners who may not have heard of Mike Lin on our team, Business of Architecture, we do offer done-for-you financial services. So if you hate dealing with the spreadsheets, you hate dealing with, you want an accountant you can trust, a financial person on your team. Yeah, our clients rave about Mike and the magic that he does. So thank you for saying that.
Absolutely.
Thank you.
Thank you. Thank you, Nick.
All right, and that's a wrap. Now here's today's Smart Practice Tooltip. You're probably great at designing buildings, but how about designing your firm's ownership transition? That's where even the best can get murky. If you spent years building your firm, you may be wondering at this point, what's next? Well, we've created a guide that breaks down the messy truths of ownership handovers and gives you the blueprint of what to avoid. Because here's the thing, legal documents won't save you from leadership meltdowns, unfortunately. This guide is for you if you're an owner looking to transition out of your firm, or perhaps you're an employee moving into firm ownership. You can get this free guide for podcast listeners by going to businessofarchitecture.com/transition-ready. And now, a word from today's sponsors.
Accurate data is crucial, especially in today's business environment. Outdated and inaccurate data leads to turnarounds, delays, and rising cost. With supply chain and staffing issues, these costs and delays can multiply. That's why a resource like rcat.com is so important. RCAT works with manufacturers to keep their data up to date and accurate, and offers it to you easily accessible and free. Use RCAT's powerful search engine to find what you need and download right there on their site without needing to pay anything or even register. So try rcat.com today. That's arcat.com.
And thank you to those recent listeners who left reviews for this podcast on iTunes. We so appreciate it because as other design professionals find this information, it helps the tide for all of us be raised. We'd love to acknowledge you here on the show. If you leave a review, you can do that by going to your iPhone, search for Business of Architecture, and after clicking on the show, scroll all the way to the bottom to leave a review. Today's episode is sponsored by Smart Practice, the world's leading step-by-step solution for small architectural practice owners that want to structure their existing practice so the complexity of business doesn't get in the way of the architecture. So if you're ready to graduate from all the admin, tedious work that has you bogged down, now may be the time to invest in getting your practice into a smart way of operating. Go to smartpracticemethod.com and you'll be able to access a free video going over the Smart Practice Method, how it works, and other firm owners like yourself that have implemented this revolutionizing way of running their practice. And as a reminder, whenever we have guests on the show, I just want to remind you that their views are not those of the hosts. We make no representation, promise, pledge, warranty, contract, bond, or commitment, except to help you live an incredible life. Carpe diem.